Thank you a lot. I'm very happy to be invited this morning. Uh, perhaps it's the beginning of great things to make together, especially with our brothers and sisters from the south. So my name is Hugues Aubin. I am 57, and I discovered both the maker movement and my own hands in 2010 when I met a hacker who gave me an Arduino card. And from then, I never stopped to be involved in the dynamic of maker spaces. At the beginning, in my region, in west of France, in Brittany, and after at the national level, and since 2010, with my friends from West African Fab Labs, who have created in 2018 the French-speaking Fab Lab network, who is now strong, and I will speak about it. I will try to speak about three topics to try to have a quick exchange at the end with you about our power, responsibility, and particular way to solve big goals that are now concerning everybody on planet Earth, not at the national level, but in fact, both at local and global level. So before speaking especially about actions concerning climate change effect, I will introduce the question of the open source and commons uh, in the way we can solve locally problems being in network, sharing the solutions. Then I will focus on Africa, about two projects I know well because I was involved with my friends, especially of West Africa, in the funding and realization of these programs. The first one is called Maker North South. It's a project that has been launched during the coronavirus crisis. And the second one is Adaptation Forge to Climate Change Effects, involving these actors of the West Africa, but also independent inventors, NGOs, associations from both Central African countries and West African countries. So I'll share my screen. Thank you to the friends, Andrew and Joseph. And I'm going to share uh, the main ID. This main ID, I call it, I hope you see my screen, you see my PDF. Please give me a feedback if you see it. You should see something black with Let's Forge operational commands. Do you see it?
Yes, and it's not full screen, but we can see it.
Okay. I think no problem. Okay. So here you see this is the main ID finally. That is an ID that is really transforming into new forms of actions, involving the maker spaces from my point of view, is that I call operational commons. So I try to introduce this concept, and this concept, in fact, in our mind, really became something real, solving real problems, local problems, using our maker tutorials, open source softwares, open source hardware, and involving the people locally in co-design of solutions without moving materials. And I call these solutions that can be locally applied by the people to themselves using knowledge in the network, operational commons, because the people who don't know our dynamics of sharing solutions through distributed intelligence and fabrication, they can have things in the end. And so they ask themselves, how is it working? And it is purely operational. It is totally concrete in the end of the people. So I call them operational commons. So you remember 2020, I was in France. I was vice president of the French Fab Lab network. And then we were finally like a country without money. Because even if you had money and you were a big hospital, no planes. You couldn't buy anything. You couldn't buy masks in China, in the USA. You couldn't buy replacing parts for the hospital. And in fact, it was totally new context for the professional actors in the health system and civil security of the people in France. So, like in your countries, everybody was trying to find solution to concerning the maker spaces, to use the digital resources we had about the face sheets, about things to wash hands, a lot of things. We, we needed machines, we needed authorizations, we needed materials, we needed a lot of things. And these things were not the same depending on the countries, but many things happened in the different countries. And in France, I was in a crisis group of the French Fab Lab network during 2 years. And we saw a lot of very interesting happening. What you see is things that the French don't tell anymore. But it was a very famous picture that was posted on the social networks at the left. This is a nurse working in a big French public hospital. And you see she is wearing a garbage bag in plastic for the trash bins. That was all they had. Okay? In one of the 10th richest country in the world. So it was very interesting moment to imagine how can we find solution when we can't move the objects. And this is something that had been expressed and studied by Thomas Diez in 2013 in the Fab City theory. So what can we do? And then what happened, it was that there were not only the Fab Labs, there were a lot of people in France that had 3D printers at home. And so the designs, open source designs that were validated by Ministry of Health in Czechia, that were also having information from Asia, from Italy, from Spain. When the pandemic was coming, these people were appearing through Facebook groups. And you had also people who were sewing masks everywhere in France. So at the left, you see the people who were sewing masks. There were more than 20,000 people in local Facebook groups. After you've got a YouTuber, a woman who was making courses about 3D printing. She oriented 1 million of people who were following her to the tutorials to use good designs to make face shields, wash them, and give them to the people. After you've got Anthony, who created a Vivier Solidaire Network, who was the second Facebook group created by independent people having 3D printer at home in a structured process to make and give to most of the people who are working everywhere in the shops who stay open, taking care of the old people everywhere. So there were something like 7,000. And after you've got Jan Marshall, nobody knew him. He was just a father at home. He created the first big Facebook group about the independent makers against coronavirus, makers contre COVID, makers against COVID. There was something like 8,000 people. And you've got at the right a YouTuber who is specialized in the maker spaces and who launched a Discord group. And on the Discord group, we had 2,000 volunteers who were making 3D designs for the asking of certain public hospitals for replacing parts. You had also some collectives of makers who wanted to create platforms with virtual factories, with data at the national level. So it means that we have suddenly, from nothing, more than 10,000 volunteers that make really things when the state of France has nothing for the people. Its ultra-local response is very powerful with a lot of limits. So then, there was also an American project, Open Source Medical Supplies, and Drew knows this project, who launched a kind of study to say what is being made in distributed fabrication networks worldwide. And so I was taking care of the information that were coming from France to them, and they shared worldwide their statistics and use case about a situation that can be considered like a crisis with emergency problems. And they said at this moment, in 86 countries, we have at least 72,000 persons in less than 2,000 local groups who made, using distributed fabrication process and methods, at least 75 millions of objects during the coronavirus crisis. This is totally something that no state, no public authority, nobody was believing in. So this is something that's very important because it's possible because of the new actors are emerging and are acting differently, trying to link to these dynamics from the both sides. And I don't have the time to go deeper in the details because I made an interview for the French government that is published. But in fact, we saw, for example, in France, that there is a kind of mesh of makers, of places where you have machines, where you can have some stocks of plastics at the beginning. And this mesh is very, very ultra local. It means that, in fact, the mesh on the Facebook groups and the places who are working together when you can't move the things legally in cars, because in France we didn't have the right to drive cars with materials, there are 80 kilometers average zones. So this is really ultra-local responses of people using materials to give to the people around solutions that are shared worldwide. At the right, you have a picture. This picture is a picture of a professional 3D printing farm that has been set up in 5 days at Paris hospitals, the biggest in France. And they made more than 40,000 3D printed objects, not only for the replacing pass, that was a big, huge needs to make the hospital work, but also for the schools, also for the associations, also for a lot of little needs that they didn't expect. At the upper right, you can see this logo with the logo, the first validated legally open source respirator that has been made and could be made legally in full open source process because of the French army. So all these things never happened again. Something that never happened again, it was that big actors that had a lot of factories in France, as they didn't want to take too much risk, for example, to give gel formula to wash hands and things like that. What did they do? How did they do? They took the open source formula of the World Health Organization for the first time, the totally exclusive solutions providers selling things only for people having money. They were using their workers as volunteers in big factories to build in industrial processes at a huge scale open source hardware things. This is something we never saw in France. So it was the same at the beginning also for the mask in textile with the closest fabric in France. I don't have the right, the time to zoom on that, but this is a full process that was lasting about 1 year in France that I call the open health process. And in this process, we could make a coalition where you had French Fab Lab, independent maker collectives, I showed to you. So these 10,000 people working together in a process to respond to the needs of the hospitals and territories by a process of validation, clinical validation, choice of the models provided by design volunteers. So you had needs expressed by hospitals, designers working during the night, team solutions per day put to the hospitals, a commission in hospitals choosing 3 of them, Fab Lab prototyping near the hospitals measuring if it works, making a PDF explaining how to make that for whom and without hurting anybody, and distributing them through their 3D printer farm and everywhere in France. This is something that never could happen before. I go to the main important thing for me. It is that, okay, it was approved by making. This was something incredible, but we have a big hole in the racket in this operational commerce because we have an increasing amount of data. We have a lot of devices in open source hardware. We have many things that are in the common good. It means that you can use it, for example, both for humanitarian purposes, but also to make a local economy because you have commercial use allowed, for example. So I asked myself, what now? In 2026, we have more than 100 million of people who don't have prosthetics. Why? Where are the barriers that make that this power is not everyday power linked to the local and global authorities to improve the life of the people who must face problems. So there is some, it means something that is not working. And for the moment, we are in a kind of game. It's not true for people like Andrew or the Make EU projects that try to change the lines. But what I see around me, it's like when I was a child, you've got a market. In this market, you have goods who are manufactured for those who can afford. You can't afford, you don't have good health. You can't afford, you don't have prosthetics. You don't have, no, so no change. And you've got uniform or top-down rules, despite the fact that the mobilization we saw during this big crisis was a top-down mobilization from the field. So it's something that it's a really important question. And so we decided to make a definition of what we call open health. And as you see, we have we think that open health is now an open health not only for the human bodies, but an open health for the planet and the living things we rely on to live properly. And if you think like that, you understand that climate change is in a systemic vision something that makes a lot of effects you can't predict happen around you. And it means that this health is a question that involves also all the questions of temperature, water quality, mosquitoes, all this stuff. So just to finish with this slide, in the context of the coronavirus crisis, we had for the first time for makers, especially a major challenge for the entire planet Earth. You couldn't solve it only for your country. You had meaning and fraternity in the fact that you are immediately sharing your solution with the people who need it, even if you can't move the materials. And I don't have the time to make you imagine that the ecological impact of distributed fabrication is not at all the same as the industry with all the Chinese boats providing the goods and using fuel. And we had people needing shared solution. We makers, we needed that this solution are legal and inclusive, for example, and we need to make it together because we know how to use collective intelligence, both in hardware, software, and organization. So it's like also a political question. I don't go further in this field, but concerning the concept of cooperation and the concept of competition. Competition, I am the best, I keep for myself. I sell to the people who can afford. Cooperation, I open links so we can have a lot of combinations that are not closed because we are able to use intelligence of the others. So I'm going I think that it's also a question of organizations that manage or question or challenge the question of local, of global, of decentralized organizations. And it's very interesting for the small nodes to have a good decentralized organization. So just here, I show some logos of the projects I met or worked with, open source medical supplies, Maker North South in Africa. I will make a zoom now on this project. Open Science with just one giant lab. Enable Networks, that is great from a wide about open source prosthetics, M19 initiative in India during coronavirus crisis, 19 universities for millions of patients, for example, Fab Care, and so on. So the idea is now we have other challenges that coronavirus crisis is simple. At the left, you've got planet Earth. For the moment, you don't have a magic thing to stop climate change effect for the next 5 centuries. So the question is, how are we going to solve challenges local that we don't know because we never had them to solve? Never. New challenges every day. So it means that now climate change effect has a parallel with the crisis of the coronavirus. It is, can we capitalize and make sense? So, as I said, we come from the problem of health of bodies to the problem of the global health of the planet and living things around us. And the certainty of uncertainty entails a responsibility for us, the makers, because we know how to make just about anything And we are capable of constantly embracing new or unplanned projects collaboratively anywhere in the world. And we don't realize that it's very rare and very strong. So now I'm going to speak about Africa because during this crisis, of course, we launched a first cooperative project to make the Fab Lab of West Africa stronger in their own places to help the people around them. And they saw the designs, but they couldn't make them. Andrew. Andrew, you raise the
I
hand.
just want to interrupt to really emphasize and congratulate what you've just said about the maker movement and its potential. Just as we move into the section on your work in Africa, I think that the coronavirus response around the world was a defining moment for so many of the makers, including people on this call today. And some of the diagrams you've shown about the processes, some of the stories you've told, are really, really exciting. And some of the people on the screen, like Anthony from Cosmics, they've gone on to do incredible work developing new technologies, new 3D printers that really embrace open source, that can be instructive to the whole maker movement. So Hugh, I want to thank you for what you've just said, and I'm excited to hear what you've got to say about Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And so now I'm zooming about Africa. So I must say about myself, I was dreaming about Africa when I was a child. And you are going to laugh when I was 10 years old. I was dreaming so strong to Africa that we escaped from the public school with two friends, and the police caught us near a river because we wanted to take a boat, to take the river, to go to a port, to take a boat, to go to Africa. And finally, in 2010, I was invited by an ex-intern I had to go to Innov Africa in Bamako. And then I met Gilles Daguela, who created the first Fab Lab in Burkina, Sename Kofi, the Way Lab in Togo, and we began to work together since 2010. And I'm going now to speak about the coalition we created during coronavirus crisis because it's very interesting. We changed the name in the middle. I will explain this to you now. So I share another screen. Okay, and I'm going to speak about this this project. Normally, you can see it, and I'm going to full screen. Okay. So when we understood that our friends from West Africa, the West African Fab Lab Network, French speaking, was created in 2018. We were historic partners with a lot of links, like, cooperation around technical people with disabilities projects in networks I don't have the time to speak about. And then they crystallized in a real network with an association. That is, the French name is REFFEO, like Réseau Francophone des Fab Labs d'Afrique de l'Ouest. And then we understood very clearly that they couldn't use the open source solution. They perfectly knew how to replicate locally because of a lack of machines. And so we decided, without money, to launch a project to equip 11 Fab Labs of 7 countries in West Africa with a lot of electronic components, tools, CNCs, laser cutters, powerful tools. Okay. So it began with myself and Médard Bayazon, who was the president. He is from Cotonou in Benin. And we push a blog online and an Airtable. And we said to every Fab Lab to explain the material, the tools, who was needed now to build things to help the people concerning their health during the coronavirus crisis. At the bottom, you can see the flags of the countries where surfaces Fab Lab. So Burkina Faso, Benin, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Mali, Togo, Mauritania, and Cameroon, because I made also a mission about the Braille project in Cameroon for a while. And then we took the people who were in France or in Africa to make a kind of, let's say, consortium with a lot of logos. And we tried to reach fund, and we said, no, we don't have money. So everybody who give fund, we immediately buy things that are on the table. We immediately send these things, and immediately we send pictures with the tag Maker North Sud, so North-South Makers, on the social networks, because we can't wait to have the whole budget. So we are going to fund anything we can in places and then activate it. And of course, we were pushing on the social networks all the things that were made with what was on the field, towards the end of the people to work in the care centers and so on. So we had Amadou, I'm very happy he's here, for the Airbus Africa community, who helped us as a volunteer during all these projects. We had one Fab Lab who was leader in France about open health in Montpellier. Myself, I have founded an international network of places involved about open source and disabilities in West Africa, Human Lab Network, Fab Lab Networks, and at the top left, it was a solidarity association who was able to manage the funds, who was able to write a clear thing about our needs, and who accepted to manage all these administrative things generally we don't like or we don't know how to manage properly for the audit and verification of the funds. And then we had first a little city, Red, who gave 10,000 euros. Okay, we push tools, send picture. Then we asked with Amadou the diaspora of African diaspora of the people who are working in Airbus group, who helped us, individuals with money they raised for the project in Spain. And we had also 10,000 euros from the big foundation in France. But we were trying to reach something like 200,000 euros with all the list. And then, as the big French Agency of Development didn't have so much to show about solidarity and health at this moment of the coronavirus crisis in 2020-21, they called us and they said, we have a big program direct about health in Africa. And if you like, we have a little budget. Even if your project is too small, you can apply. When somebody has funds and asks you to apply, you apply. And so finally, everything was funded. The results were very simple. The program was very simple. We wanted to solve the problem of tools, machines to make things, a problem to help the local maker spaces to develop their own economy, to last, because they don't have treasuries, they don't have funds, and with these machines, they can imagine local activities, and they don't have any recognition from the local authorities, cities, states, and so on. So the idea was to work on these three things with just two actions. The first one was to equip the labs with the materials, machines, and so on. And the second was to make a precious plastic fork in Benin. So the people at the node in a West African Fab Lab network able to make made in Africa recycling plastic machines to use other source of materials. It was made in 2022 in Benin, and we successfully organized great meetings with Amadou, who is here. For the first time, we had, for us, Andrew, for the first time, we had real health researchers with makers speaking together about problematic of health in Africa. It was very interesting because we spoke about the universal access to health for the people who can't afford, and we spoke about the resiliency, the way the local health system could be stronger. So this project was very interesting because we were ourselves surprised it worked. It means that today the French West African Fab Lab network has really strong equipment and is now bigger and stronger locally, but also is mobilized for humanitarian questions about disabled people, about health, and why not about climate change. So now I jump to the projects that we made, especially about the climate change effect and to face solution. So I hope I'm not boring, but I finish with that because, in fact, Andrew and Joseph know this project, and you have some people of the community who are in the call, who are mostly French-speaking people. This is a project that was launched by my little association, the CC Lab, like CC, like Creative Commons, but also like climate change. So this is a climate change lab. And what is the goal of the association that is legally written to the public authorities? It is to learn, make, and share solutions to face climate change effects. It's not to stop the climate change. It's how are we going to drink water, eat food, move, walk, maintain a quality of health that avoid the people to kill each other for rare resources on planet Earth. That is going to happen, for example, with the war we see about oil, about the way the boats are putting the merchandise, and so on. So we were anticipating this, and we said we don't have the power to change the climate change phenomenon, but we discovered that we have a huge power to make distributed dynamics through the values and also the engineering of distributed fabrication to make another way so the people can be optimistic in good health, maintaining the place they are living in by acting, by making directly on this. So this project was called Forge CC because it was a forge of solutions to face climate change effect. I will show it quickly and show example of documentation you can use on the platform. So I go to this, okay, please, voila, okay, and I share. I hope I'm not too long. Arrêtez le partage, donc ça c'est bon. Ok, I go up, Control L, voilà. So here, I go quick. I won't show you the whole slide, and I will send the link to Joseph so he can share it with all of you. And if you want to look deeper into
Hugh, I think we're seeing the wrong window. I think we're seeing a folder, not a slide.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I manage that. Thank you a lot. Okay, we'll do that. Window. Ta-ta-ta. Let's try that. And now, do you have Forge source of adaptations?
We do, yes. It looks great.
Yes,
Lots
thank
of logos.
you, Andrew. Thank you, Joseph, Andrew. Cooperation. So the idea was, no, we don't have the choice. You must adapt to the effect of climate change. Okay, your grandmother, if it's too hot, she can survive. Okay, we must do that in the certainty of a certainty. Okay, it's very interesting. You know, all these people who have big money and so on, they make bet on 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Okay, we making buildings, making big infrastructure. What happens when you don't know what is going to happen in the next years? What happens when you have problems with nuclear central for the first time in France because you've got living animals, medusa, who are blocking the things, who are taking the fresh water to cool the reactor? It happened 2 years before, never planned. Okay. What happens when you've got a little change of some degrees, and so you've got the little microorganisms that are feeding themselves from your old skin on all your body that can't live correctly? Never happened. How are you living without your skin breathing correctly? Never happened. And thousands of things like that. So it means that the people that are used to make survey, to invent things with local things, without knowing before the little projects, but are organized in bigger projects to do things in uncertainty, they are very, very useful if they want to be in this kind of challenge solving. So we think that we must learn the lesson of the mobilization around the coronavirus crisis and then after the open health and the proof by making was made. We think it's necessary to create a solution for crises in cascade because we are in a polycrisis step now. Okay, crisis for temperature, crisis for water, crisis for energy, crisis for who's moving, a lot of crises. And we can also spread objects without moving their atoms. So we can collapse the flows of matter and we can deal with logistical disruptions. So it means that if we can make all of that legally, we can have a very important role in the next steps. I don't go in the details concerning that, but the idea was not only was to raise money. So I won French Call for Project, who was the first edition of the Call for Commons, only funding things that are not exclusive. And we said to them, okay, we want to organize workshops in West Africa with partners. These workshops will be free for all the people of villages and cities, but all the contents of the workshops will be documented so the teachers, the communities, the companies could train groups of people around making of objects that we have also the tutors to replicate. And we dimensioned this to organize 40 workshops in West Africa during 1 year. It was a very quick project, very strong project. And we launched a call to say, you are in West Africa, you want to make workshop of 1 or 2 days around solutions to face climate change effects. You have some sub-themes, for example, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. You can say, what is those I address? You have also the topics of the founders, the French Ministry of Environment, and you have the topics of the platform. So we created a wiki with structured databases, and we created a documentation grid to make interviews of people organizing workshops, created a contract of commons, created a process so the jury of founders can select for 3 waves the people organizing workshops. And we had at the end more than 1,000 people, 1,000 pages of documentation in CC by EC in something like 11 or 14 countries for the first time, and everything online can be used both by partners or anybody on planet Earth. The digital platform is forgecc.org, and it's not only a wiki, but it's also a platform that make able to generate PDF manuals that make also able to embed tutors, that make always open data in everything, Carto, scheduler, selected, non-selected workshops, because we couldn't find something like more than 100 workshops that applied and that we didn't have enough money to fund. So it means that we had a little success, less than 20% of the organizations who organized workshops were not Fab Labs. It was a goal for me, to take out of the maker world solutions of the maker world, to take the commons logical and put it in society, in associations, in little territories. So I share my screen, I go up to the website. Here on this website, this is the link I sent to you, Andrew, you remember. You can see, for example, in documentation and for CC, you have here a grid that is a grid to document the didactical conduct of a workshop. It's very structured. It works with every places. So we say, does it last 1 day, 2 days? We have a grant to give for the people who organize for 1 day or 2 days. You have all the topics, and you have all preparation of the workshops and so on. Okay.
Hugues, you're not sharing the right tab.
Pardon?
I think you wanted to share tu partages pas le site, tu partages la présentation.
Okay.
On voit pas le site.
Merci, Amadou. So I share the good screen. Thank you, Amadou, who is back the website of ForgeCC. So I am on forgecc.org. If what you see is a form, this form is in a wiki structure with data. Here you've got the form to make us able to document all the 40 workshops who were conducted. Okay, we have a process I can detail to you that is very strong because we make people document even if they didn't speak French, even if they were in the desert in Niger, and we made it mostly remote in a cooperation process. I show you the result, for example, here with, I'm sorry, it's in French for the moment. Here, there are some workshops. So you see, for example, here you've got do-it-yourself aeroponic solution from Ivory Coast, Abidjan. Here you've got a system to analyze the soils to know if you must put this or this culture here that was made and invented in open source hardware in 2 days in Cameroon. Here you've got the Braille wrap printer, also in Cameroon. Here you've got valorization of garbage of electronics in Tunis. Here you've got an ecological bazero in RDC, Democratic Republic of Congo. It was not easy to organize workshops there. And so on and so on and so on. And if I zoom, for example, here about biopesticide with NIM, this was made by the great association of Rabia Moussa in the Niger with an association of women. What you see is not a fabrication documentation. What you see is not just a GitHub. This is the way I can train 30 women about the fabrication with all the details concerning the soft skills, the hard skills, the environmental notions, the tools, the materials, the local, do you need electricity, the size, the time, the welcome of the people, the security, the financial funding, the communication to recruit the people, the things you say to them as rules, the preparation of materials and keys, the gestion of the pauses. And here you got everything that happened during the day if you want to do it, for example. And at the bottom, we have a documentation of fabrication. And what is very interesting in this documentation around biopesticide is that we began with electronic cards, but we finished with things that are called low-tech, local knowledge that is very useful, very ecological, and that can be documented the same way you document any technical object because it's a technical method that is in the local culture. And it's very powerful, strong, and resilient. So I learned a lot of things in this project because we began to document drones, genetical methods, things like that. And at the end, we succeeded in funding people who were also making workshops and documenting traditional knowledge in the maker grammar. And here on this website, you have this fabrication. I show it to you. This is a simple PDF with, we make a mentoring, and the classical structure you have on Instructables, Wikifab, and thing, Academy, okay? Classical tools, logistics, materials, step of fabrication, BOM, links, and GitHub if necessary, okay? And we have this in more than 1,000 pages with the 11 countries. So now I go to the conclusion, and I'm sorry, but I wanted to say a lot of things to you. So I go to the conclusion, and we can speak together. I try to find, okay, I have it. I go back to the questions. So I'm going, in fact, I stop the sharing. I try to do the good sharing. It's okay for me. Voilà. Okay, I have it, and I finish. Concerning what I want to say. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Non, contrôle L, c'est bon. S'il veut bien. Contrôle L. Merci. Okay. So a question that is very important for us is that in Maker Source we had luck. We could fund everything, and most of the Fab Lab found local economical models and are ready to remobilize in the French network around questions about open health and about disabilities. They were involved before, but in a more structured way. For example, raising funds with the Make EU community. For example, making things with you, the people of African makerspaces. A question I want to ask to you is your makerspace? Are you here by passion only to earn money locally in developed? That is interesting, local economic model. But the question is not the quality of what you are making technically for me. You know, when you take a bag of tea, it can be very good tea. But if it's not infusing, it means nothing, okay? So the question is, are you succeeding in influencing the local authorities? Are you succeeding in working with the schools who are there? Are you succeeding in making experimentation that can be documented about any field that concerns local companies and territory, or just making prototypes in your corner with people everywhere in the world? So if you want to make good tea, you need to work with the water, and you need to infuse. So my question is, even if you are structured at a global scale, for example, African continent, do you want or not as a goal to infuse, to change the thing everywhere where you're living? Or do you just want to have good quality of tea that is not infusing really where you're living? And then you can also make choices, and they are your choices. Okay? The choices you decide to make because you know better than anybody where you're living. You know your culture. Okay? And for me, it's my values. That's what I said to the French people. That's what I said to every people. You can have the classical thing to be a winner, competition. You are the best technically. You keep the exclusivity. You make elitist project. It's market driven, centered on the Fab Lab and techno solutionist. Or you make cooperation. You make common good and open source. You want to be inclusive. You imagine new desirable economic models in an holistic approach, the tea bag, democratic and desirable. Thank you for your hearing. I stop. Voilà. So now I thank you. I thank you, and I'm hearing your question. I thank you a lot for the invitation.
That was brilliant, and I particularly love the last slide, the contrasting of the two columns. Joseph, do you want to facilitate the questions?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And thank you very much, Hugo. Does anyone has a question?
I would take this time of silence to say also that I was very interesting to see the Make EU program, and I didn't know who was launching this program. And then I met Andrew and Joseph in a video, and I discovered they were involved into it. So I was so excited when we spoke together because for me, Africa has a really huge potential in the African culture to promote both technical innovation, local applications, and traditional knowledge using this documentation of what the people in universities call gray literature, people that are not documented by academics but are very important for the people who live there. And I think you are in this place where the challenges are so big and fast that you are used to look at the world and locally to find solutions. So I think that you really can be a huge example for the people who try, for example, to find only solutions in their country, because you are a kind of big culture and country, and the borders can't be closing your cooperative innovation and having results at the same time. That's my point of view. That's why I learned too much when I go. I was in Dakar last year. I was in Benin. Every time I learn a lot of things, and especially concerning this kind of strange things, the people in which countries they say high tech, low tech, and so on. But finally, when you go on the field, the people who make the best low techs, they don't know the word low tech. Okay. They just make it for a lot of time. but you can raise money on these tasks.
Absolutely, thank you, and thanks for being generous for the Make project. Kirsten, who is on the call today, was one of the key players of that project, and yeah, thank you for the kind words. I put the link to that project in the chat, along with the links for a couple of the websites that you mentioned in your talk of your project. I'm sorry about the silence there. I was just about to ask a question, and a massive truck came and parked right outside the window and started making a huge amount of noise. So I'm sorry about that. But let's go to the people who've raised their hands. So I can't quite remember your name. IST Makerspace. I couldn't hear Joseph before, so because of the noise from the truck. So go ahead.
Oh, good morning, you. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I really appreciate it. And also, the real point where you mentioned that a local knowledge is very important. There is an area where you say that local knowledge is very important. I want to tell you because last time I went to a health laboratory, and then I tried to ask them how can we make the materials locally here, and I had a discussion with them, and they said that we have to get more precision. We have to be more precise on making the materials locally. And I'd like to ask you, do you think with less materials, can we use less materials to make those health equipment in order that they can be more precise and they can be useful for the people, the health people? How do you think about it? Yeah, health. Yeah, thank you.
Usually, there is a kind of frontier that has been blurred during the coronavirus crisis between amateurs and professionals, especially in the health system. So they don't want they don't want to kill people using amateur solutions. So the problem is, where is the step to work with them is often too high, because they want a specification or certification that can last perhaps 3 years to have for a laboratory of a company, and the need is on the field. So even if everybody knows that there is nothing to use, sometimes it's not easy even to repair health material and making the doctors use it. It depends of the places, but it means that you will be more if you have what we tried in a lot of places during the coronavirus crisis, and probably now also in several projects, to have a kind of process that can be explained. For example, we don't use shitty materials. For example, if we give you this thing, and they told me it can be used only in this kind of use case, and you can have this answer, not you because you are a health professional, but because you are in a network like MakeEU, like a makerspace network that provide this insight, so you can answer to these questions, and also you can, for example, give a link to trusted information. That's very important in the health system. It will help you because you can say, okay, we are making the same things like in Togo, that in Ghana, that in Ghana. You can, if you like, call the health center that is using it, and we add this page, this web page with the PDF and the carto of the people using it. Of course, they will believe it's safe much more, as if you are in front of them, they are asking you medical questions, for example, or certifications you can get in your country. Okay, so I think that Andrew perhaps can give an insight about that due to his experience. Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Where are you located?
I am located in Burkina Faso.
Burkina.
Yeah, Burkina Faso.
I had a call of my friend Gilles Daguela from Ouagalab.
Oh, Ouagalab.
There is yes, I am member 14 of the Ouagalab.
Wow.
10 years. And Gilda gave me a call 2 days before saying he don't have money, but he wants us perhaps to make a mission during August,
Yeah.
this August in Burkina.
Yeah.
So stay tuned because I hope a lot. I will make a jump in Burkina, and I hope I will stay invited in the African Makerspace community. So if you can meet physically and to, for example, make documentation tests or things together, we'd be very happy to meet you and stay informed because perhaps we can drink a tea together in Burkina. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really happy to connect with you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can't really hear Joseph. I think there's quite a bit of background noise. Can we go to Mary, please? Mary, your question.
Yeah, thank you so much for the nice presentation, and I'm really impressed by the community of Fab Labs in West Africa. So I'm based in Kisumu, Kenya, Fab Lab winner. Yeah, my question is now before the funding, because from the presentation, I know like you received huge funding for the labs. Maybe on the onset period, how did you tackle that challenge of maybe these labs do not have enough resources to start working? And also maybe in terms of the healthcare, maybe making healthcare items, how is the reception like from the government perspective? Thank you.
Mary. I must say that when you look at the amount of the projects, most of the projects are under finally 250,000 euros. It seems big money, but it's not. When you look at the cooperation projects concerning, for example, to have good water in big cities, in associations like international French-speaking mayor associations, there are several millions of euros programs that are making nothing on the field, working really 14 years, okay, with more than 1 million per year. So they are very surprised when they see the result of dynamics with maker spaces on the field, because they are real people on pictures, crowd of witnesses, and it's totally a strange object for a big agency. So first, it's difficult to make them found at the beginning because they don't understand. We had a special context in the coronavirus crisis that helped us. Before, we had a background concerning cooperation with little money, less than 50,000 euros for 15 places. So it's not a lot, huh, believe me, in disability field that make strong people wanting to work further together. And then today, in fact, the reality for me is that we didn't succeed for the moment in the network I know myself, except perhaps the academic Fab Lab network, with the help of universities providing a lot of open source hardware solutions and specifications. We don't have real consciousness of public, states, and local authorities, except small local authorities who are trying to solve things in the villages at a scale that people speak directly to each other in cities like Dakar, in cities like Abidjan, big cities, at this scale, even Bamako and so on. In reality, the makers movement and the Fab Labs are considered like outsiders, not structural actors you can really found for years in strategies. It's a pity, but for me, it's always true. But now, in the polycrisis moment we are entering in, everybody must find solutions, even small solutions, because you have a lot of things that were working that are not working, plus the new challenges and the people, it's in their daily life. So here, there is really for me a big opportunity. For example, I was dreaming when I had this great call with Andrew and Joseph. I was dreaming to myself, I invited in the community call, invite immediately what is interesting to me when I see all the competencies and the people of the WhatsApp group, and I found it totally natural so that the French speaking or anybody go to an African group to cooperate together, is that, you know, when you have more than, I don't know, 400, 300, 250 places in more than 20 countries that really can cooperate on the local fields. It costs so lot of money that what you ask is nothing when you compare to the classical way of working. So I'm sure we can make a joint venture to load something from yours if we want to cooperate, for example, together with the friends of West African Fab Lab Network, the African Diaspora of Airbus Group, the network, for example, I've seen, and depending of the decisions of our brothers and sisters in Africa and the people who are here in the room, you must understand that never you had coalition like that to share solutions, concrete, really made on the field to face climate change effects we know and we will discover every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. And actually, I want to echo that. And there are funding opportunities available in France that could help, like the FID Innovation Fund. And now all of you have access to the Association of African Makerspaces as a registered organization in South Africa, so that you can do collective fundraising as well across the network, whether that's East Africa, West Africa, or the whole of Africa, on a regional basis, or even on a national basis. If I know, I was talking to someone, Nelson from TMG Makerspace in Johannesburg yesterday, and they have difficulty fundraising because they are part of a university and there's quite a lot of bureaucracy involved. So having an independent organization through which they could fundraise is helpful. But I need to wrap up the session today, and just to give huge appreciation to you, not just for the talk today, but also for your work and your engagement with African Makerspaces. As Joseph said at the very beginning, how excited we were to have you present to this community and to connect your community and your initiatives with the African Makerspaces group. So this is the beginning of something, I think. We'll be back in about a month's time. There seems to be some problems. I have difficulty hearing Joseph. But I think in terms of announcements, we'll be back in a month's time. We'll be sharing the recordings of recent calls very shortly, including this one. The idea of having the biennial African Makerspaces gathering, ecosystem gathering, is currently on hold. We spoke about it last time as being around the AfroLabs gathering in Uganda, but unfortunately, because of the Ebola outbreak in Uganda, AfroLabs has decided to relocate their conference, has not announced their new venue. So we're waiting for them to announce before we can announce if, and then where, and then when our meeting might be, if we can get it to go ahead. So please keep listening out for announcements on that. Thanks again to Hugh. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the great questions. And until next time, bye for now.
And like we say with the people of West Africa, we are together. Don't forget that.